Louisville Center's Thought Leadership Series. My name is Holly Prather. I'm Vice President of the Center and really happy to help organize these events for you and the team. And I've got, like I mentioned, a few of our staff members here with us as well. And we've got a really important and I think just important conversation, and there should be a touch of fun because we're talking food this afternoon with Ryan and Ann. But before we do that, we have a lot of our members with us, and so we want to make sure our alumni are in the loop on all that is happening with the Leadership Louisville Center, both so you can come hang out with us, either in a virtual or an in-person, one day soon environment, and then also so that you can be our ambassadors and invite friends to come hang out with us. So what we've got coming up, I want to make sure you're aware of, is we have our Leadership Green Room Micro Learning, which just launched in April, and these are free virtual learning opportunities where you can skill up and hear from some amazing leaders. We've got some really great programming coming up soon. June 17th, Dr. OJ Oleka is going to present To Lead is Human, Understanding Your Imperfections as a Leader During a Crisis. On July 1st, Marian Vassar is going to do a 90-minute workshop on When Love is Not Enough, How Implicit Bias Affects Our Daily Interactions with Others. So really, really important content. And then July 8th, we've got a national empowerment speaker, Sherry Riley, that's going to present Live in Your Power, 5 Keys to Inner Peace and Increase Productivity. So come hang out with us. I'll share and an email link to get registered. Those are free, so you can join us and invite your guests. And we're talking a lot about the virtual environment. You might have seen our email earlier today where we launched the 2020 and 2021 virtual and classroom calendar for the Leadership Green Room menu of courses. And you might have noticed that the first three of them that are included are all going to be offered virtually. The one coming up on June 25th and 26th is presented with the Ken Blanchard Companies. And because we are a nonprofit and through our partnership, you can get a pretty significant discount on that course by doing that with us. And there's some really important skill sets that are needed for your individual contributors, especially as we are being asked to lead and work often from home environments. And then the 2 courses in July are also offered virtually. So exciting stuff coming up in the green room. Next, I want to make sure people know that applications are open for our Ignite Louisville program for young professionals. These are for the classes that are going to begin. One will begin in August and one will begin early 2021. And this is an amazing program for young professionals. You might have seen the results of the most recent class come out yesterday if you get our email. So come learn more about this program, share it with young professionals you know. We're having some free virtual overview sessions on June 18th and June 23rd. So you can come. Those are great things to direct people to if they want to learn more about Ignite. And I think this is the last thing I'm going to share, but our 100 Wise Women event series is going virtual in June. We have Ingrid Hernandez speaking. She is going to be amazing. We are rehearsing to make that an amazing talk that she will give, where she will share her leadership story, which has some really, really important things, especially as she is someone who's leading a small business at the moment and having to navigate through the crisis that we all are experiencing at the moment. And for those of you who are used to 100 Wise Women and know that there's great table conversation with a Wise Women table host, we are going to do that in the virtual environment. And we are about to announce a partnership so that you can also enjoy breakfast while you're with us in a virtual environment. So lots of fun things happening with the Leadership Louisville Center. Thank you for indulging me and listening to all of those things, and we'll share details on all of them coming soon. So that brings us to today's events, and I want to make sure that we highlight really, really important community leaders. One of those is Jim Allen with Baird. Baird has long been a supporter of this series, and he's been with us full steam ahead as we've converted this to virtual as we need to, and just really support Baird's leadership, both their work in the community, and Jim himself is just a long time board member and community supporter, great community leader. And so I'm going to invite Jim to get on the screen and introduce our speakers.
Great, thank you, Holly, and good afternoon, everybody. And I do want to put a plug in for Leadership Louisville and their great leadership and all that we've got going in this community these days and in this world these days. We're going to lean heavily on Leadership Louisville, their thought leadership, the fact that they convene leaders and will work towards sort of actionable solutions and help support us. So Leadership Louisville provides so much value to our community on so many levels, and we appreciate the opportunity to be affiliated and supportive of Leadership Louisville programming. But for now, let's have a little bit of fun with our speakers for today. Ryan Rogers is the founder of High Cotton Hospitality, a chef, a restaurateur, Southern nomad, and Americana enthusiast. Today, High Cotton Hospitality's portfolio has 5 restaurants, including Feast Barbecue, Royals Hot Chicken, and Bar Vetti, with additional locations under construction and concepts on the horizon. Ryan is a Louisville Business First 40 Under 40 honoree, and his restaurants have been featured in a variety of national publications, including Garden and Gun, Travel and Leisure, USA Today, and the New York Times. He is a Kentucky Colonel and an avid eater and former traveler. And Shadle. Ann is the co-owner of the Mayan Cafe, Mayan Street Food, and Mayan Cafe Catering. Combined with her business partner and brother-in-law, Bruce Eucane, and his nationally renowned cooking expertise, Shadle has grown the business, developed the brand, and created a distinct company culture. Under her leadership, staff turnover rates are some of the lowest in the industry, and the restaurant has experienced revenue growth each year since opening in 2007. Ann was the recipient of the 2019 National Association of Women Business Owners Thrive Award for business owners of 10 plus years. In her free time, Ann enjoys mentoring new and growing fellow business owners. We look forward to learning more about Ryan and Ann and Louisville's restaurant scene this afternoon. Welcome, Ryan and Ann. We're so pleased to have you today.
Thank you, Jim. Excited to meet Ryan and Ann as well. And so we're going to get started with our conversation on preserving Louisville's foodie culture. And I want to get to know Ryan and Ann a little bit better. And as I had the opportunity to meet and get to know the two of them, I've learned that being a restaurant owner was not at the top of their career goals as they started off. And so they both landed in this role in unique ways. So Ryan, let's hear from you first. How did you get to where you are today?
It's a really long story, and I don't think we have that much time, but basically I grew up all over the South in 7 different states, ran away to New York City and ended up graduating from NYU, took a job as a data analyst in Utah, and then moved back to New York to go to culinary school. Food had always been something I was passionate about, but the idea of an hourly job working long hours isn't really that enticing. But I'm just enough of a masochist to get into it. So I moved back to New York, went to culinary school, worked in a couple of restaurants there, and when the economic crisis hit in 2009, I moved to Louisville, where my parents were. Ended up working at a few restaurants here in Louisville, and kind of was at a crossroads in my culinary career of feeling the need to move to a bigger culinary city like Chicago or LA or back to New York, or trying to take a stab at opening my own restaurant. So in 2012, right before my 26th birthday, I think, we opened Feast Barbecue in New Albany, Indiana, in a 130-year-old building that had been vacant for 25 years, and exceeded our expectations dramatically. Ended up opening a second Feast Barbecue location, a much larger and, as it turned out, much busier location on Market Street in 2014 or 15 maybe. Followed that up with Royal Hot Chicken just about a year later on Market Street. We had an opportunity to open Bar Vetti at the 800 building at 4th and York in the fall of 2017. We just actually moved that to the AC Hotel on Market Street across from Royal Hot Chicken. In 2018, we opened another Feast Barbecue in Jeffersontown. And then as of January, I believe this year, we opened a Royal Hot Chicken in Jeffersontown as well. And we have a Royal Hot Chicken under construction on Shelbyville Road on the way to Middletown, though I'm told it's not Middletown by Middletown residents.
Wow, that is a long way from where you started off. Yeah. So Anne, let's hear your story. How did you land into your current role?
Sure. I moved to Louisville in 2006, right after finishing undergrad, and I moved here with the intention of getting my master's in social work at University of Louisville. I did that for 2 days, and in the interim from when I moved to when I was supposed to start grad school, my sister was dating Bruce Ucon of the Mayan Gypsy at that point, and he was in the process of closing Mayan Gypsy and then reopening or opening the Mayan Cafe. And I was, kind of in the middle of things and offered to help him type his menus and get the ABC license. And 13 years later, I'm still here. After we opened, and then a couple years into it, I bought into it because I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm enjoying this in a way that I never would have imagined that being a businesswoman was something really natural for me to do. And then I guess we've been doing it for about 10 years. And for the final 5 of those 10 years, there really wasn't a night that I would go to bed without saying, if I don't open another business from the very beginning by myself, then I probably haven't succeeded. So it was that energy that Mayan Street Food was born out of in 2017. So Bruce and I opened that, which is a food truck that's the exclusive food partner for Gravely Brewing Company on Baxter Avenue. So Ryan and I just bounce around on Market Street. We see each other walking down the street often. It's a good neighborhood. So so we opened that a couple of years ago, and it's been going well. And then we have catered the whole time that we have been open at the Mayan Cafe. So for over 10 years. In the last couple of years, as the bourbon distillery industry has really kind of taken off in downtown Louisville, we developed a lot of really good partnerships with distilleries and have found a great outlet for our catering services there, as well as other wedding venues and things like that. So that part of our business has really been the growth piece over the last couple of years, which has been exciting. So it's 3 sort of separate things, but all kind of rooted in the same concepts of using sustainable ingredients and building a sustainable team of people. So grateful to, I think what's special about Louisville is that you can have an idea, you can be 23 like I was, or 26 like Ryan was, and get something started and really make a go at it in this town. So I'm appreciative to be here.
Yeah. Wow, amazing stories. And I'm super impressed with the business acumen that you both have had to grow and expand the way that you have. So you both went on or have achieved a level of success with your businesses, both growing, both expanding, both finding new ways to grow and to build revenue. And then COVID happens. So tell me how things changed in March.
COVID was kind of like, you're watching the reports happen and they're saying, it's happening in China, and you see that it's coming to the United States, and there's, some early hits in Seattle and San Francisco. And then it kind of, got to the second week of March, and I actually happened to be in Cincinnati, Ohio on March 14th and 15th. And I start kind of noticing that, some of the restaurants that I was going to in Cincinnati were saying, I think we're gonna close down next week, or we're gonna try to change. And I quickly went back to Louisville on Sunday the 15th, and I think it was Monday morning the 16th that Andy Bashir announced that restaurants would be closed to dining room traffic starting at 5 p.m. that evening. And thankfully for us, Feast Barbecue and Royal Hot Chicken had been doing some amount of carry out and online ordering prior to that happening. So we went from doing, 15 to 30% of our sales being online ordering and carry out to closing our dining rooms completely, and that online ordering and carry out sales becoming 100% of our business. And today we're doing 50% of the business that we would traditionally do during this time of the year. For our restaurant bar Vetti, which was doing maybe less than 5%, we didn't even have online ordering, but maybe less than 5% takeout, carry out. We closed for a day. I kind of convened with our chef partner, Andy McCabe, and said, what do you want to do? We need to think about a whole different menu that makes sense for carry out as opposed to what we were traditionally doing in that restaurant. Let's kind of focus on pizzas and more comfort food options. And within a day, Andy was able to kind of come to me with a menu update, and we were able to get an online ordering platform set up and start online ordering on Tuesday, the 17th. And from then, it's been a lot of trying to understand how we can optimize that system for consumers as much as possible. How do we make online ordering convenient? How do we expedite the processes within our own restaurants? How do we make sure that we're using more sustainable packaging options, and also getting enough packaging options to fulfill all of our carry-out needs? And doing this while trying to understand, we don't necessarily have a roadmap or a game plan for what we were getting into, but we wanted to keep as many people employed as possible. So, the option for us wasn't to necessarily just close and lay everyone off. My initial thought was, let's just try to put the gas in the tank and push this as much as we can and keep everybody employed, because we didn't know how long it was going to last.
Yeah. Wow. And tell us what March looked like for you.
Yeah, I feel like for people in the restaurant industry, March 16th is sort of like 9/11, or when JFK was shot. It's like this moment in time that I'll never forget exactly where I was and what I was doing, and the day or two leading up to it. I had sort of felt it coming, and so we had put out a special packaged menu offering the day before, that Sunday night before that. So we had, a normal Facebook post of ours gets like 1,500, 2,000 views, which is like fine. It's not very much, right? Within 5 hours, that post that I put on that Sunday night before the restaurants were shut down by the governor, in 5 hours, we had 25,000 views. And by a couple days later, we were like 60,000. So we did this packaged meal menu that was a little bit different than our regular menu as a carryout option. It was things that traveled better, lower price point, more food, really trying to sort of like meet the need of people whose budgets were being affected by the economic situation. So we got that out to the public and had just this incredible response of positivity of, so many customers coming, I want to support you. I need to make sure that Mayan Cafe survives this, which was just really, really heartwarming on a lot of levels. And then after a couple weeks of doing that, when the federal unemployment match had come in, and as the cases were rising in the city, I frankly just got really nervous about our staff, because many of the folks that work for us have kids or are single moms in some cases. And so it was like, is this situation worth the risk? You just don't quite know. So we closed for about 2 months there. We had closed the food truck kind of right away. And then have in sort of like every week for the last month, it's felt like we've opened a new business where it was like, first we did carry out at the food truck, and then we did carry out at the restaurant, and then Gravely and Mayan Street Food opened to the public last week, and then we're opening the dining room here to the public in a couple weeks. So it's just been, and in a way it's like a whole different business model every time, because it's a different menu, it's different packaging, so it's different new things you have to purchase, it's different safety protocols, it's different marketing techniques, it's different staffing model. So, all while hoping that nobody gets seriously sick from this operation. So I used to get really energized by coming up with new business concepts, and now I'm just sort of tired. I'll be able to like give my mind a break after this sort of slows down, because it's just been a lot of like reinvent, pivot, twist, adjust. I mean, and in both Ryan and my cases, what's nice is that even though we are more than just one individual place, we're still small enough that we can be nimble, we can pivot. Andy McCabe can make a menu in 24 hours, like you have to have good people who have good creative skills to turn a brand that's, that's upscale casual into, in the McVetti. I mean, like I can't eat bread, but like I want a McVetti right now because the marketing you guys have done is so good, So it's just, I mean, it's a real, like it's been this particular kind of challenge that you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit like built into the management team, because you have to have that persistence and that drive to like, it doesn't matter what's going to come at you, I'm going to survive. And that's Bruce, my business partner. That is him at his core, growing up as a Mayan Indian in an impoverished community in Mexico. He can't help but have this force that pushes him forward. And so I just, I grab onto it and I hold on for dear life, So I've been super grateful to have that spirit and that energy through these last several months, because we've needed it.
Yeah,
it's definitely tough. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, we used to pursue the idea of perfection at our restaurants and always trying to do everything perfect. And before we would roll something out, we had to test it 4,000 times, and we had to go through the processes and write very large SOPs and make sure everybody knew what they were doing. And this has all taught us that, the pursuit of perfection isn't always the best choice sometimes, and really being flexible and being able to pivot quickly and rolling something out and figuring it out as you go has really been helpful for our businesses. We've rolled out brunch at Feast and at Royals on the weekends, and new menu items and limited time offerings and collaborations with other businesses on Market Street. We have this Please and Thank You cookie milkshake at Royals that we launched a month ago, and it's been great. It's just now been about, okay, let's be flexible. Let's just try to move on the fly and make decisions that make sense today, because tomorrow the decisions that we made yesterday may be totally the wrong decisions. But let's just keep working and keep trying to change and figure it out, because we don't know what the future holds for us.
Yeah. So speaking of what the future might hold, so we're now in June and the rules are changing. How has reopening impacted what you're doing, and what do you expect might happen in the month ahead? And I know that that's like the month ahead is long-term thinking. So anything you might add for?
I mean, for us, our next step of things is to open the dining room at, a much more limited capacity, as well as offering service on our patio, which has been right now. It's like you can get carryout and then just sit outside, but we aren't providing service out there. So it's adding that piece of things. So, I mean, we're just trying to figure out all of the operational details of that. And then, I mean, I don't think we can't even talk beyond like 2 weeks at a time is kind of the timeline that I'm on, is like, we'll see. And I try to have like 3 different plans of like, okay, for today, and then for 2 weeks, and then maybe for 2 months. But really I'm just focusing on what is the very next decision, because the more that I have tried to plan for 2 steps ahead, it's just unnecessary stress, because you make a plan and you shouldn't spend any time putting it into action, because you have no idea, what's happen.
Yeah, I spent about 3.5 hours so far today writing a SOP on what reopening looks like for our fast casual restaurants. We have a restaurant that's Vetti, that's traditionally a table service restaurant, and we just reopened it for carry out only in our new space on Market Street, which we're really excited to open that one day. We never really envisioned that we would open that space with gloves and masks. but we also don't know when we could potentially do that. So we have to think about when we do kind of commit to what a reopening looks like. And it's a little bit easier in a restaurant that takes reservations and that we can kind of manage the flow versus our other restaurants, which have traditionally been fast casual restaurants in the past. And Feast and Royals in particular, traditionally on the weekends or a Friday night may have a pretty long line out the door, or a Friday lunch. And we have to think about how we space those people, if it even makes sense to encourage people to stand in a line to go into the restaurant, how we're managing the capacity of that restaurant, where entrances are, where exits are, what kind of guidance we have to provide to our customers. You know, I've gone out to a couple of restaurants myself over the past couple of weeks to see what people are doing that I like and I don't like. And I've seen so many customers at restaurants just blatantly disregarding guidance that restaurants are supposed to be giving customers, which is you should have a mask on unless you're sitting at your table eating. So if you get up and go to the bathroom, you should have your mask on getting up from your table and going to the bathroom, and then wearing it until you get back to your table. And I've seen so many consumers out there just not wearing masks at all, or, you know, taking them off by the time they get into the restaurant. So kind of managing guest expectations and understanding how we're going to enforce things and what things are important to be enforced and what things we're going to have to let slide to some degree is a very challenging scenario. When we have a set of guidelines that says we need to do X and we have consumers that are doing Y, we have a lot of consumers that are doing X, but a lot are doing Y. And I think Ann mentioned this earlier this week. You know, we used to be in the position of restaurants of, you know, always saying yes, always trying to accommodate. And now that we have this kind of deadly virus out there, I don't think we can be in that position anymore where we can accommodate like we used to with consumers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I called all of my servers this afternoon and told them about our plans to reopen and to get together and talk about things and make sure they were comfortable with everything. And, you know, one of my servers had this experience right before the restaurants were shut down, where there was a woman who was coughing aggressively, and, you know, and it got on my server, and she was like, you know, what are you going to do? Like, do you think that, you know, do I have to keep waiting on her? And in that moment, I was like, wash your face, put gloves on. You know, it was like all of these things that stopped short of asking that woman to go home because she was obviously sick, right? And I called that same server and I was like, look, I want you to know that is not. I am now empowered, by, you know, the governor's regulations in the state, but also by the world being different. That, you know, if somebody's sick, I'm not gonna say come and sit with us. You know, it's like, hey, take your food to go or come back when you feel better. But I'm sorry, this is a risk. You know, it's like you know, we have to change what the perspective is. You know, because it can't be the same world. If we're not functioning by the same rules, the customers have to understand that there are different rules. I mean, I've watched Gravely, where our food truck is, go through the process of putting together a new set of regulations. And some of the similar questions I'm sure that you're having, Ryan, because their type of service was very different. And so they now have a host stand and somebody seats you and you can't go up to the bar and order anything up there. And they're being really strict about when you come in to get a table, if you don't have a mask on, they tell you, please go to your car, get a mask, or please go home and get it and come back. And they've gotten a lot of pushback because most other places aren't doing that. And I respect that they're holding that line, because, you know, because what happens is customers come in and say, oh, well, I went to XYZ and I didn't have to do it there, you know, and so it just makes it that much harder for the ones who are really trying to be smart, to be intentional, to be protective, because it's not just we're trying to make it good for today, we're trying to make this so that we can get through the fall and through the winter and not have to have another complete shutdown, because there is an aggressive second wave of this, which we're all reading the same articles that's likely anyway. So, you know, we can have a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. It is certainly worth it right now.
Yeah. Well, and Anne, you mentioned that that the world has changed, and when you and Ryan and I first talked and set this event up a couple of weeks ago, you know, the pandemic and the economy were the top news stories. And now the headlines are focused on racial disparities in our community, which is as they should be. But it certainly, you know, changed the conversation in our community. So do either of you see opportunities for the service and hospitality industries and even businesses like yours to make positive changes in this area? Love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, we've crafted a statement to let the public know about our reopening, and it's a little bit about us opening. It's a little bit about coronavirus, but much more than that. It is our words and using the platform that we have as a business that's been around for over 20 years in this community and is a minority-owned business at 51% and 49% a women-owned business. That says this is the world that has been like this for our Black staff members, our Black neighbors, and other Black business owners for a very long time. It's now we're finally talking about it, and the conversation needs to change, and the responsibility to lead the fight is on white people, because we created the problem in the first place, and so we need to be the ones to find the solution. And so I am grateful that we have the platform that we do and the customer base that we do to say, you know, come to this place, yes, to have a respite from what's going on in the world, but come and strategize. We're close to downtown. You can't pretend, you know, when you're in Nulu that you're in this cute little bubble and you haven't seen anything, right? Like, and so I want to use that for people to give pause, for them to look, for them to really see, for them to start those conversations and to take action to create more justice for Black people in this country, because it needs to happen, you know, and I hope the fight continues, right? Like, I hope the protests don't stop. It certainly is not a thing for it to be, to know that our neighborhood is a potential target for protests. It's not a thing for us, right? But it is, but this is just a building. This is just wood and bricks. Black lives matter much more than this building. And so, you know, we want to state that what's the most important at this point.
Ryan, do you want to add to?
Yeah, I mean, I think Anne said so many great things there. Obviously, it's hard for me to understand the discrimination that people of color in our country have faced for hundreds of years. That's just something, as a white straight male, I've never had to face. I think the thing that the restaurant industry and so many other industries needs to do is pay people a fair living wage. We, in the restaurant industry as a whole, in the hospitality industry, you know, probably disproportionately hire people of color and other minorities. And for the most part, those people are not being paid a livable or fair wage within restaurants. They're not being provided for in terms of healthcare, their healthcare needs. They're not being exposed to the financial literacy opportunities they need to really, you know, continue to pull themselves up the financial ladder. So I think we have an obligation within our industry to treat, not only be, you know, a respite for our customers, but we have to be a respite and a welcoming place for our employees as well, and make sure that we're doing the job that we need to do, which is taking care of our employees and making sure that they are feeling taken care of, that they're having their health care taken care of, that they're being financially compensated for their needs. And part of that is raising the minimum wage in our country, is providing universal health care, that we can make sure all Americans, but in this particular moment, people of color, Black people, are giving opportunities to have a payment structure that allows them a living wage.
Wow. It's really appreciate the two of you sharing your voices to that and using your your platforms, your businesses to create positive change. So yeah, I think that's really, really important. And I want to get back to, our original goal of this conversation. We've talked a lot about how you're being impacted, your businesses are being impacted, and some of the challenges that we face from all directions. But let's talk about how we preserve the local assets that we have in our local restaurants and our local food culture. So first, I'd love to, we kind of think we know this, but I think it's probably a good idea to state, what is your perspective on what the local food culture does to benefit our city and our economy and our people? What do you think that you bring to our community?
Ryan, I'm gonna let you go on that.
Yes, well, okay.
More employees than I do, so I'm gonna let that weight go first.
It's a huge thing that local businesses bring to a community, and it's, local businesses are more likely to be buying their products that they're producing from local farms. So we have this whole chain that of local farms that we're buying from, that then we're selling that food to these consumers. Dollars that you spend in local restaurants are more likely to stay within your local economy, as opposed to buying food at a chain restaurant where that money is being filtered out into shareholders who may live somewhere else in this country. Your local businesses are locally owned here, so that money is going right into back into our local economy for the most part. And then you have to look at tourism at the end of the day. Nobody's excited anymore of the 80s and 90s dream of going to the Hard Rock Cafe anywhere in the United States. There's a Hard Rock Cafe here in Louisville. There's a Hard Rock Cafe in probably 50 other cities in the US. Those aren't what make cities special anymore. There are restaurants like Mayan Cafe that's buying from local farms, that's producing Bruce Buchanan's food of his culture growing up, that makes that restaurant unique, that you don't find that anywhere else in the country. And it's a restaurant like Vetti, where Andrew McCabe is taking his experiences with Italian food and blending that with local produce here in Kentucky. So instead of prosciutto di Parma, they might use Kentucky country ham. And they're using local cheeses instead of buying, ricotta cheese. They're making cheese from local milk. So those are just unique experiences that can only happen in local restaurants. They're not going to happen at the TGI Fridays on 4th Street at the end of the day. That place is just existing to sell the same thing that they sell at the TGI Fridays in Times Square and the TGI Fridays in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you said this the other day, Ryan, that you have over 200 employees between the 5 or 6 different businesses that you've got. I mean, I had 30, I guess, at sort of the top of the game in the summers before this. So those are jobs first. I mean, and all the things that you said, obviously, all the meats and the bulk of the produce and cheese that we've purchased, for over 10 years at the restaurant comes from local farms. And then it's like all the other little vendors, right? It's my plumber, it's my CPA, it's my marketing team, right? Our marketing team used to be our neighbors. It's all of these little people that we're supporting, and that's what's been so interesting in this time, right? Is that right before this was all happening, I had my friends at Curtis Creative reaching out to me saying, how are you doing? How is all this happening? The reason why that post that I made at the beginning of this was able to have such a huge swing was because the president of Via Studio, who's a friend of mine, they do all of our web design and marketing. He reached out to me 2 days before I posted that and was like, hey, do you need me to work on, some kind of carry out promotion for you? He went into the office twice on his day off, did the whole thing for free. I got it out before the big notice, but it's those little relationships that, we've watched our businesses grow together, that Ryan is at Mayan Cafe for lunch, shoot, like I should put your name on a table, when you moved Feast over to Louisville, I was counting down the months. I was so excited because the only reason I would go to New Albany was to go to Feast, the original one. I mean, I was just like dying for it to walk down there, so when you're, you know, when you're on this level, you go out of your way to support other small businesses. And so it's like, know that any dollar that is being spent in a business that is locally independently owned it's not just that $1. It's all, you know, it's keep us alive so we can keep my CPA firm alive, so we can keep my electrician alive, you know. It's all of that, you know. So it's
and all the money that I haven't made in the past few months, like I've gone out of my way to eat at all local restaurants in the past 3 months since this happened. I think I'm at 55 different restaurants here in Louisville that I've all locally owned small business restaurants that I've eaten at for carryout since they opened, because I know those people are still doing the exact same things. They're all going out, taking whatever money they're earning, and they're putting it back into the local economy. And it's just cyclical. What we're kind of missing right now is that whole tourism aspect of people who aren't traveling here to Louisville. But the thing that made our city great prior to this happening was, hey, you could come here, you could drive here from many very close cities, Cincinnati, Lexington, Nashville, St. Louis, Indianapolis. And we had great bourbon culture, but you can't have just great drink culture without the food to accompany it. And I think we have a great food culture in Louisville, and it's continuously getting better, and it's better than when I moved here in 2009. But if we're not supporting those local businesses now, they're not going to be around for that great food culture when this is over. And the people that will survive are those big public chains that have millions of dollars backing them, and they can go get a bank loan pretty easy if they need to support them through this crisis.
Yeah. We also talked about talent attraction and what the local food economy does for attracting people to the city.
I think that's huge. I mean, for me, we have a real opportunity in Louisville right now that we need to focus on. We have all of these people, and I've got so many friends from my time at NYU who are leaving New York City, who've been there since I left, who are saying, I've got to get out of New York City. It's crazy here. I don't want to be here anymore. And I have friends who live in LA and who live in San Francisco and Seattle, who are saying, I want to get somewhere that feels safer. I want to be somewhere closer to my family members. And I can do my work from anywhere now. We've all accepted, for the most part, unless you work in a restaurant, I can get on my computer from basically anywhere and get my job done. I don't need to show up to an office every single day, and I don't need to have an in-person meeting to get our jobs done. So we have a real opportunity to say, hey, you know what? You want to move from New York City? You want to move from San Francisco or LA? Come to Louisville, Kentucky. We've got a great park system. We've got great restaurants. We've got great bars. We've got everything that you could want. We've got great museums and art culture. We just have to make sure that we're promoting that to people and saying, look, our cost of living is incredible here. And you can take that big East Coast, West Coast salary, and you're basically a king here as opposed to living in your, one bedroom studio in New York City.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting low on time, and I also want to make sure we get to some questions in the chat. So if you've got questions for Ryan and Ann, please put them in now. And I'm going to close with one question before I lean into those. And I'm going to invite Ryan and Ann to be a little bit rapid fire so we can get through some of these questions. So what can the community do to support your businesses and the local economy that maybe you haven't already mentioned? Or do you want to reiterate, here's the 3 things we need you to do?
I think one thing that I would like to put out there is the Courier Journal recently posted a list of all of the Black-owned restaurants in the city. So I would say first go to them even before coming to Mayan Cafe or Mayan Street Food. I'm not going to speak for you, Ryan, but I think you're probably
yes, agreed. Same.
Yeah. And you had pointed this out the other day, Ryan, about that there's a lot of folks that their entire life savings is wrapped up in that business, in just the one unique restaurant that they have. And for those folks that have less capital than you, or to a lesser degree that I do, I would say also go to them before you go to either of us, right? To really, really be intentional about what choices you're making as you're going out to eat, that every dollar really matters in a way that maybe it didn't used to before. And so be very intentional as you're making those choices of where to eat.
I would say if you can afford to do it, go out every single day. Jeff Bezos, Whole Foods, he's got billions of dollars. He doesn't need your money. He doesn't need you to support him. also, do you really want to stand in line at Whole Foods to like go in there? No. You should do is call a restaurant up or go on their online ordering page, order some food, be super lazy, pick it up, eat it at home. It's great. It's a great experience. I've never gotten better carry-out food in my life. I can go pick up ceviche or Jack Fry's or Mayan Cafe or any of these great restaurants in Louisville and take it to my house and have a great dining experience without having to worry about like standing in line at Whole Foods and giving Jeff Bezos money. And then, like Ann said, I mean, there's so many also really great Black-owned businesses. I just went to Foodie's Cafe last week on Bardstown Road. I'd never been there before, and had an incredible experience with Nigerian food that I wasn't familiar with, but it was awesome. And I totally would recommend that people take this as an opportunity to explore restaurants that are owned by people of color. A lot of those restaurants are definitely kind of mom and pop run, and they need support right now for sure. If they're doing the kind of sales volume that we're doing in terms of a percentage, they definitely need your support.
Yeah. Well, and when you go, do exactly what you do, Ryan, which is to post on your
over order.
Well, yes, over order one, and then two, to post on whatever your personal social media platform is, but use your platform and tag that restaurant, because then they can repost it and share it on their own stuff. But like, spread that social media love and use it, because it's a lot more authentic and organic at this point than us saying, oh, come and get my packaged meal, right? Like how much can I say about that? So it's that can make a big difference and makes your dollar go even further.
Yes, that's the only thing we should be spreading right now. Spreading social media, joy, and these things that we're finding, all of these cool restaurants that are available out there. We should not be spreading the coronavirus.
Well, and I'll say it because it's easier for me to say this, but tip well, spend well when you partake in these local restaurants. Okay, I'm going to quickly go to some of the questions we have in chat, and there's one very specific from Ariana Levinson. So for Anne, what do you think the likelihood of a dinner for a group of 20 or 40 in October is? She's planning a conference for U of L Law. Is that possible?
I have spent a lot of time reimagining catered events in the post-coronavirus world, and 20 to 40 is our sweet spot. So I have all sorts of ways that we can do that, and we can make it fun and we can make it safe. So Anne at themayancafe.com, Anne with an E. Send me an email. I'll take care of you.
Include that. And I will
say, if you've never had Mayan Catering, it's incredible.
I was going to say the same thing. We use it on a regular basis at the Leadership Louisville Center, and so great stuff. Okay.
It's one of our very first customers of catering way back in the day. So I appreciate that and know that it's not forgotten. Yeah.
Yes. Levi, for both of you, what % of your previous customers do you believe you need to cover your fixed costs?
I can't speak for Ann, but for us, it definitely varies based on the business. We have technically 6 different leases that we have, not including our office space. And each one of those leases is a different dollar per square foot. They're all different sizes. We're all kind of across the board. If you kind of smash them all together, they're all operating at about 50% of our previous sales volume, or where we would be at this time of year. And so in that, there are about 2 of those restaurants that are breaking even, and 3 of those restaurants that have been kind of consistently losing money month over month.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've put a budget together for, when we open the dining room at a smaller capacity. And I mean, I needed like half of my previous sales to kind of break even. But it's not just your fixed costs. You've got to factor in what the labor is and the food costs. So it's a balance between the fixed costs as well as the variable costs, trying to find the sweet spot of what's the break-even point with that. So, I mean, I would say 50 to 60, I could probably make it work. Yeah.
And we have someone who loves the bourbon slushies at Feast Barbecue. So shout out to you.
Thank you. You can get them to go.
Okay, Todd Lanham. So given the growth of the foodie culture, how has your engagement with customers changed? And what things do you do to develop relationships with your fans so they spread the gospel of your menus?
I mean, the social media world has really, really changed, because it's like it's not just enough right now to have good food and good service. You have to know how to talk about it and what words and how to tag it, and what the angle is for the picture and what's the background. So yeah, I mean, it's put like a whole other sort of spin on what we do. For us, the way that we have grown over the years has been like slow and steady has been our approach. And it has been have a good product and do that for a very long time, and don't really have a bad day, right? And so that has, and somehow those lima beans just magically became this thing that people want to talk about. Like we didn't do that. Bruce put lima beans on the menu originally because he thought Americans liked lima beans. He hadn't been in this country for long. It was the most hated vegetable of all of the vegetables, including Brussels sprouts. But because it is has such a strong distaste and poor connection with it, that's what made it be this thing that people are so surprised about. And they have this conversion experience, which then creates an emotional memory surrounding their experience at Mayan Cafe. And now they want to talk about lima beans. So all I can say is like, thank you to the lima bean gods for doing that to us. Because I wish I was that good. I was like a child when that happened. That was a long time ago. Seriously. But so having something like the bourbon slushies, right? They make somebody want to like ping in a chat room. You've got to figure out what is that thing when they zig, you zag, and just like push the heck out of it, right? Every tasting event I've ever gone to, we bring lima beans because it makes people want to talk about it. And so you just, if you find that thing that naturally resonates with your customers, but you first have to listen to them to know what's resonating with them.
Yeah. Ryan, you want to add anything?
I think Anne was really nailing it at the end there, in particular, listening to the customer. And, when we opened Royal's Hot Chicken, we were a very traditional Nashville style hot chicken restaurant with bone-in fried chicken. And we kind of looked at that sales mix month over month, and it was 65% boneless chicken the first month. And then the next month it was 70% boneless chicken. And I think we got to June of the first year that we were open, and it was 80% boneless chicken. And I'm going, why are we doing all this work for bone-in chicken that takes 25 minutes to cook when our consumers want a boneless product? So we switched, and we got some like instant, negative feedback on Yelp, which expected. And then we saw our sales increase 30% immediately because we were able to process people through the line faster, and we were able to get more product out of the door quicker. And the majority of our consumers were happy with that boneless product as opposed to the bone-in product that only a smaller portion of our consumers wanted. So definitely listening to people. And then it's been really about, it used to be about hospitality within the restaurants and trying to make the experience as positive as possible. We understand that waiting in line kind of sucks. So trying to think about how do we make that situation better. We've had some success in that, and also a lot of failures trying to say, well, let's put out water stations for people if it's hot outside, so we can make sure people are hydrated. Let's make sure people have menus. Let's give them drink service while they're in line. Let's make sure that we're checking on first-time guests, that they've gotten food and they're happy with everything. We had these little neighborhood postcards that we used to give out at Feast and Royals on Market Street that said, hey, if you're traveling or you're new in town and you don't know anything about Louisville, here's a bunch of restaurants and bars that we love in town that you should go check out. Here's everything cool that's on Market Street. So while you're here, you can walk down the street to Mayan Cafe or Deca or Rye or Harvest or all these places. But also while you're here, here's 10 other places that are outside of Market Street that you should go check out. And then we left a little space on there that would say, we'd tell our employees, hey, if you've got a show tonight or your band's playing this weekend, or of something cool that's happening in town, maybe Actors Theater has a play going on, make sure to just, hey, write in there a message. Hey, come check us out. We're playing at Zanzibar at 7:30 on Friday. Come check my band out. We're a metal band and you're probably going to hate us, whatever. But making that guest experience real and having trying to have a genuine connection with people, I think is the thing that used to separate our restaurants. Now we've spent a lot of time over the past 3 months thinking about, okay, we can't have people in our space currently, but how do we give them a good experience? So Vetti, about a month ago, we reached out to our friend Patrick Callahan, who's the drummer for My Morning Jacket, and he's a big Vetti fan. And I said, Patrick, could you build us your ideal Vetti playlist on Spotify? And then we gave everybody just a little QR code that you could take home. You could scan it. And you could say, hey, play this playlist when you get home and you're eating our food, and have a Vetti at home experience. And here's some little tea lights, and here's a little coaster. And I know it's not as fun as eating at the restaurant maybe, but we want to make sure that you're still having a positive experience when you're enjoying our restaurant.
Very cool. Well, we are running out of time. We've got 2 questions left, so I'm going to marry them together and have you all try to answer quickly. Daniel Thomas asked about, we've got some blueprints for conducting business under the restrictions. Can you sustain your models with a carryout only if there is a second wave of the virus? And then the next question from Emily Hagedorn, hopefully I said her name right. How important is to-go alcohol and making carryout work? Are you finding a lot of people ordering alcohol? So both questions kind of about carryout and how it sustains you. And how about if you can both maybe answer in about a minute, and we should be able to have your last words in.
I know statistically at our fast casual restaurants, alcohol sales for us were about 13 to 16% of our total sales. And at Vetti, they were closer to 35 to 40% of our total sales. Right now, they're about 5% of our total sales. It's definitely beneficial in that alcohol is a very low labor cost product, in that we kind of take it and then we just resell it. So we might have to make a cocktail and it's a few ingredients, but for the most part, it's not as labor intensive as making food in a kitchen. So it's definitely beneficial. And I hope that our citizens have shown that they can be responsible enough that we can continue to have to-go alcohol sales in the future. In terms of a carryout only model, if a second wave returns, I don't know. We've gotten this far so far only doing carryout. It would certainly be painful in the future, and but we'll have to see when we get there. Like Ann and I have said, I think over the past hour, we can make plans for the future, but tomorrow things are probably going to change again. I didn't expect Governor Bashir to tell me that restaurants that were at 33% capacity could go to 50% capacity earlier this week. So what are you going to do?
Ann, thoughts on carryout and alcohol?
Yeah, I would say with the carryout, like it just depends if there's like additional assistance from the government, right? Because that certainly has been helpful from the labor perspective, the PPP money, because we were able to get that. So if it were to be like another aggressive shutdown, it could work if something else came in to help cover some of the costs, whether it's this or that or whatever, whether it's product cost instead of labor, but some form of assistance, because that's what's making this possible, in a way. So I would say, if this, then that, then okay, and then also my hope in restarting carryout when we did a few weeks ago was, if there were to be a second wave, okay, we've really nailed this all down, we've figured this all out, so if we do have to go back to it, then at least I've got a menu in a drawer that I can just pull out and not have to recreate the wheel there. The alcohol thing, I would say my alcohol versus food sales are probably pretty similar to what yours are, Ryan. I think it's a nice marketing technique, that may get some people out, say, oh, I'm going to get a cocktail and food. But I mean, generally we're seeing people, getting the things that they knew and loved before, like that sort of sense of comfort that they had grown to expect from certain things from us. Those are the things that they want now. So I think the alcohol, it obviously doesn't hurt, but and it's an easy upselling piece, right? Like if I get to have a conversation on the phone with a customer, there is nobody who gets off the phone without hearing, and did you want to add a drink with that? Because we've got some awesome cocktails and bottles of wine for $18. Shoot, they think it's a glass. I'm like, I'm not charging $18 for a glass of wine. It's a whole bottle. So yeah, so I mean, we'll take any options that are given to us, I think, and work with it. I feel like Ryan and I have both shown that we'll make, we're making lemonade.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time, but this has been a really amazing conversation. Thanks to you both. I'm going to start sharing my screen so that I can share what's happening with both Ryan and Ann's restaurants right now as far as their hours and their service. Ann included her menu or her website. It's themayancafe.com. Ryan, do you want to give a shout out to well, I guess people can just Google Feast Barbecue Royals or Bar Vetti, and I can
They'll
follow
be the first things to pop up, I promise you.
Yes, they are. I found them earlier today. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to do this. This will be recorded. We're going to send it to everyone who registered as well, and great conversation. Thanks to everyone for being part of the Leadership Louisville Center, and we will be in touch. And